What is up, guys? It is your boy N607 here. Welcome to a bit of a different review. So today I'm going to actually be reviewing two games instead of one. The reason being that these two games are pretty similar to one another, and I just felt that rather than making two separate videos, I just combined them into one double review. So get ready for the best double feature review in the world. Because today, I'm going to be taking a look at both of the Kirby games that appeared on the 3DS, being Kirby Triple Deluxe, which came out in 2014, and then Kirby Planet Robobot, which came out in 2016. And I played through both of these games. I recently played through Planet Robobot, which is kind of the reason I'm making this video. But since I never reviewed Triple Deluxe, I figured we'll review both. Now, I'm going to start with Triple Deluxe, and then we'll go through all the categories for that game, and then we'll go through Planet Robobot. So yeah, we'll basically work from game to game, and then we'll see which one wins at the end of the day. So, let's go right into it. Starting off with Triple Deluxe, and this is the one that I've played the most and have the most bias with and the most memories with, so that will probably reflect later on. Just keep that in mind. But let's start off with the presentation. Now, Kirby Triple Deluxe is basically another Kirby game. It's basically Kirby's Return to Dreamland 2, except now it's on the 3DS. It is a little bit different as now you're exploring like these I think it's called the Dream Stalk, which is like this huge beanstalk with all these like worlds and whatnot above like Planet Popstar and whatnot, and you go through those and whatnot. Yeah, there's really not too much to say. It's your typical Kirby game, which could be seen as a negative as it's not really that original, but hey, it still works though. It's still Kirby and it's not bad by any means. It's still pretty solid. And I will say visually, this game looks really solid. I really like how this game looks on the 3DS. It performs really well, and I really like the 3D mechanic with sometimes. It can get really creative with it, especially something that we'll get into a little bit later. But let's talk about the story next. Now, the story of the game is really nothing that special. Basically, the Dreamstalk appears one day because there's this evil bee queen or whatever it is doing bad things, and then there's this guy called Taranza, this weird spider guy that kidnaps DDD, which basically is the main catalyst for the story as Kirby chases after him to save DDD. It's your typical Kirby fare, but then again, Kirby was never really hell-bent on being like a deep story or anything like that. At least not until later in the game. But I'm not getting into that. It's not even really that interesting in this game anyways. But the story of the game is still rather alright. And now moving on to the gameplay. Now, remember how I said before that this is basically Kirby's Return to Dreamland 2? Well, yeah, the gameplay is pretty much the exact same. Which is definitely not a bad thing. But it's obviously like Kirby, you suck. You spit back out, you use copy abilities, you get like all the collectibles, which I believe are called the Sunstones, in each level, and finish the level, go on and so forth, repeat over and over and over to the final boss. There's really not so much to say. I mean, Kirby is one of the most like easy games to describe, and like really, I don't have much else to say. It's just that I would say that like the gameplay is pretty fun. I will say though, it's honestly probably a lot more fun with the 3DS than it is like with the Wii remote, but that's just a personal thing, because rather than having to shake the Wii remote so that way you could get the huge suck, now you just hold down the B button, so it's a lot easier that way. And I also think that this kind of game works a lot better on a handheld anyways. It's a lot of fun. It's kind of fun to have basically a game like Kirby's Return to Dreamland on your handheld, like your 3DS. So, yeah. However, one of the bigger mechanics in this game, and the one that's more gimmicky kind, is the Hypernova, which makes Kirby so powerful that he can suck entire trees in his mouth. That sounds horrible, but basically there's segments where you'll get like some sort of like, I don't even know what it's called, like some sort of like bean flower or something that like causes you to go Super Saiyan, and then you can get some huge sucks so you can move stuff. So like if there's like a huge block in the way that's blocking the path, you could just use your Hypernova to suck it and move it away from that block, that wall, so that way you can actually get through. There's really not too much to say about it. There's only some segments with this Hypernova ability anyways, but really, that's it. That's really all I have to say for gameplay. And the gameplay of this game is rather solid. I think it's really, really fun. There's really not much else to say. I'm sorry. Gameplay-wise, it's pretty good. And control-wise, the game controls completely fine. I'm pretty sure I mentioned that before. Moving on to the content of the game. Now, this game, the main story isn't relatively that long. You could probably beat it in like 6 hours. I'm pretty sure, believe I beat it in like a few days back when I first got it, though it's not like I played the game like from start to finish in like one big marathon, but it isn't too lengthy of a game, but you do have some other stuff as well. Like when you beat the game, you get the arena where you can challenge all the bosses, and you also got the DDD tour, which is the, I guess if you want to call it New Game Plus, where you play as DDD, which is pretty cool that I actually have never beaten. But that's besides the point. And you also got like 2 mini games as well, where you got one which is basically like a DDD like rhythm kind of game, which is kind of interesting, and you also got a like Kirby fighting game, which is really interesting that they actually made like a fighting game. Both of these 2 mini games that I mentioned at the very end actually do have their own standalone 3DS eShop versions of the game that actually are a lot more full and have more stuff. Like with the DDDs, I think it's called Drum Dash or something like that. That one actually has like a 3DS eShop version that has more songs, and the same thing with Kirby Fighters, where it has a lot more content. But they're still pretty small games at the end of the day. But they're still nice little distractions from the main game. But yeah, I'd say content-wise, it was a $40 game when it came out. I'd say it was definitely worth the price. And the soundtrack, I love the soundtrack of this game so much. It isn't the most the most amazing thing ever, but it's very similar to Return to Dreamland with its orchestral songs. I love it a lot. It's really, really good. Beautiful soundtrack. And now moving on to my final thoughts. Now, Triple Deluxe is amazing because honestly, this is the one. I believe I got this game on launch day, and it was just so much fun. I had so much fun with it. I played my 3DS so much back in the day, and this was definitely one of those games that I played a lot of because I just like the gameplay a lot. It's not the most creative game ever. It's definitely a lot more generic Kirby, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. I love it quite a lot for what it is, because what it does so right. It's really, really good. I would absolutely recommend checking it out. Sure, it's not the most creative thing ever, but that doesn't necessarily mean the game is bad. On my scale of 0 to 10, I give Kirby Triple Deluxe a solid 8.5 out of 10. And I would say let me know in the comment section what you think, but we're not done because we got another game to go through. So let's take a look at Planet Robobot now, which came out in 2016. I also got this game on release date, but I have a lot less memories with this game because, to be honest, I didn't really care for the game too much when I first got it. Don't get me wrong, I thought it was a good game, but I thought the Robobot mechanic was weird and out of place, but let's really take a look at it. Let's start off with the presentation now. Kirby Planet Robobot is Kirby's Return to Dreamland 3, basically, or Kirby Triple Deluxe 2. It's a sequel to Triple Deluxe, basically. Not like directly, but like it's basically the same sort of thing. Though this game is actually pretty different, as this game actually uses a lot more mechanical sort of stuff. The world's a lot more like technologically future based, and you also have like Robobot armor and stuff like that, which we'll get into that more so in the gameplay section. But this game is definitely a lot more on the creative side, and I will give him that. This game is a lot more creative. And performance-wise, I would say that the game is pretty solid. It's basically the same as Triple Deluxe. It's pretty cool. But really, there's not too much else to say. The only real thing to say, I would say, are just the levels themselves, which I'll kind of get into that more in the gameplay, but I really like how some of the levels look. Kind of like, they take some really good advantage of the 3D at times. But yeah, presentation-wise, it's pretty solid, but moving on to the story of the game. So it's just a normal day on Planet Popstar when then mechanical machines just start appearing everywhere and taking all the juice out of the planet. And you have to, and this huge machine just pops out and you have to just figure out what's going on and destroy that machine, which you'll find out much later in the story what that actually is. I'd say the story of the game is definitely much better than that of Triple Deluxe, as there's just more going on with this game. But there's not too much to say on it. So moving on to the gameplay, it is basically Triple Deluxe 2. But there are a couple new additions. The biggest one being the Robobot armor that I mentioned before. Basically, every now and then in a level, you'll find this like this armor for a robot that you can actually pilot, which basically changes the gameplay quite a bit. While you are slower, you have bigger attacks and whatnot, and your robot can actually translate various copy abilities to actually use them for its own. So if you got like a sword enemy, it can actually read all of its data and actually get some huge blades that you can cut various stuff with, which is really cool. I really like how the Robobot armor is. And when I first played the game, I personally thought it was kind of just weird and honestly kind of clunky. But upon replaying the game again recently, it's actually really solid. It actually works way better than I honestly ever expected. And actually, it's quite fun, honestly. It can get really fun sometimes, especially with like the certain levels where, like, if it's the jet ability, it actually turns the game into a side-scrolling shoot 'em up, which is really cool. I like that a lot. And I really think the robot armor is really, really solid. And really, that's kind of the only new thing with this game. Sure, there's new ideas with like the level design and whatnot, because I really like how the levels look. They're a lot more interesting than that of the ones in Triple Deluxe, whereas Triple Deluxe had worlds that were based more around generic ideas like forest, desert, stuff like that. This game goes for more interesting sort of stuff, like you got like, yeah, there's like an ocean and whatnot, but there's like a lot of mechanical stuff everywhere, and like you got all these, like there's this one level where like there's like the Waddle are driving in freaking cars. It's so cool. And it like feels different from what like the rest of the game, like what other games feel like. And that's the thing that Kirby Planet Robot does amazingly well, is its creativity, which I would say is probably its best benefit because it makes the game a lot more memorable. Yeah, Triple Deluxe is a great game and whatnot, but Planet Robot is much more memorable. But I'll get more into that later at the end of the video. But still, gameplay-wise, it is really, really solid. And control-wise, it's rather solid too. Don't really have much to say on that. And now moving on to the content. Now, I will say the Planet Robot probably has the same amount of content as Triple Deluxe. You got the main game, you got the arena, and you got I believe you got the mode where you go through, you go through as Meta Knight for the, I guess, New Game Plus, if you want to call it, harder version of the game and whatnot. And you've also got 2 mini games as well. One of them is Team Kirby Clash, I believe it's called. At least that's what I remember of it. It's basically like kind of like an RPG sort of thing where you fight bosses and whatnot, and you have like stats and whatnot, which is pretty cool. But you also got Kirby 3D Rumble, which is like the first time Kirby was actually playable in 3D. And in both of these these games would get eShop versions as well, in the form of Team Kirby Clash Deluxe and Kirby Blowout Blast. I definitely recommend checking them out, especially before the 3DS eShop kind of goes AFK. So I would definitely take a look at those games if you're interested in them. I really like 3D Rumble. Honestly, when the game first came out, that was what I played the most, because it was just so cool to see Kirby in 3D. Although, it isn't really... It's a mix. It's cool and whatnot, but it is a very small game, and like, it really isn't what people want to see. But still, content-wise, the game is really good. And as for the music, it's good. The game goes for a lot more techno kind of music, and while it does definitely fit with the game's theme, I personally prefer the orchestral soundtrack from Triple Deluxe, so yeah. And now, moving on to my final thoughts on Planet Robot. I like this game quite a bit, and I think that after like finally finishing the game recently, it is a really good Kirby game, and I know exactly why so many people love it. And that is why, on my scale of 0 to 10, I am giving Kirby Planet Robot an 8 out of 10. Yeah, I like Triple Deluxe more. Here's the thing, Planet Robobot is the more creative game, and I'd say that if you were to play one of the Kirby games on the 3DS, I would say probably play Planet Robobot. That one's just more memorable. But personally, I had more experience and more memories with Triple Deluxe, and I can't really I can't let that go. I'm sorry. Call me biased and whatnot, but like, I like Triple Deluxe more. I just think that it's a little better. And don't get me wrong, Planet Robobot is still a phenomenal game. I gave it an 8 out of 10, but I still like Triple Deluxe more. So final verdict, Triple Deluxe, 8.5 out of 10, and Planet Robobot, 8 out of 10. I know the comment section is going to be a fun day on this one, but let me know down below whether or not you agree with me or not. Tell me how wrong I am in the comments below for not putting Planet Robobot above. I think it's more interesting though too, but that's besides the point. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure to hit the like button, and of course subscribe if you want to see more videos like this, maybe more dual reviews or something like that, though I'm not completely sure on that. But with that being said, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace out and take care, everybody. Stay safe.